I sat in the audience of this man's lecture twice, once in Cedar Rapids, once in Davenport. Same tour, and I watched it change between the two nights. Watched him rework it live in front of a few thousand people. Jordan Peterson on a stage, wrestling with God out loud, real emotion. I saw the tears come out of his eyes. And here's the part that stays with me. The first night I saw him, it was before he'd committed, before he knelt. I was watching a man in motion, moving towards something he couldn't quite name yet. He just released that lecture tonight, and it circles one question, the same question every tired man in this country is asking quietly, in the truck, in the shower, at 2 in the morning. God, the book says ask and you'll receive, so why the silence? I'm not going to answer that from a commentary chair. I'm going to answer it from inside a truck that was running out of fuel, because I've been on both sides of that prayer. The one God answered so clearly, I wept, and the other one he let fall apart in my hands. And the difference between them is the most important thing Peterson said tonight, and the one place he stops just short. Years ago, I was broke, not tight this month broke, no cash, nothing in the bank, driving my buddy's F-250, a diesel, and I was running out of fuel. If you've never driven a diesel, here's what you need to know. They don't sputter and coast and forgive you. They just die. And that truck had started to cough. And they don't cough. It dies. But this truck coughed. The nearest diesel pump was farther than the fuel I had left that I could reach. I was new in my faith, barely, still half expecting God to take one look at me and decide I wasn't worth the trouble. And I prayed, desperate, no planned prayer, and I heard something, a voice in my head, telling me exactly where to go, telling me to pull up to a pump I had no way to pay for. So I did. I drove toward it, certain the engine was going to stall in the middle of traffic. It didn't. I rolled up to that pump, and now I'm sitting there with no money and no way to make it work. What am I supposed to do? And in that second, a ding, my phone, PayPal was still connected to eBay at that time, and somebody right then bought something I'd listed on eBay, and enough money came into my account to cover that fuel. I sat in that cabin, I cried, because there was no explaining it away. That voice was the Holy Spirit. God answered the prayer. I was there. So let me be clear before I say anything else. I'm not a man wondering whether God answers prayer. I've got fuel in a tank that proves he does. I've got tons of other stories that I can share that proves he does. But here's the testimony that I don't lead with. There was another prayer, a relationship, the one I wanted out of all of them. And I prayed for it in the same way. I prayed harder. I prayed in that truck harder than you can imagine. I stood in the shower one night for hours praying, the water gone cold, asking God to bless it, to show me the way, to show her the way, to change hearts, to make us a couple who'd honor him together, worship in his house, the whole picture that life would come together the way it's supposed to come together. And that prayer didn't come true. It didn't just go unanswered. It curdled. The thing I was begging God to knit together came apart in resentment, and it ended. The same man, same desperation, same God, two opposite answers, and for a long time, I couldn't get those two prayers to live in the same body. Here's what it took me years to see, and it's the exact thing Peterson named tonight. In the truck, I had no plan. I was coughing for fuel, and I obeyed a voice that told me to do the thing that made no sense. I surrendered the how. I didn't tell God how to rescue me. I just did the next obedient thing and let Him be God. In the shower, I had already drawn the ending. I named the person, named the house, named the happy life, and then I asked God to sign the contract I had already written. That's not surrender. That's negotiation with the outcome already decided, and I called it submission. It was a man asking God to bless what the man already wanted. Peterson put it like this. He said, if it's about what you want, you're wrestling with yourself. And the moment I heard that, it landed on me, not on him. In that shower, I wasn't wrestling with God. I was wrestling with God over a thing I wanted. That's a different fight. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be opened. You desire, but do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. Both of those are in the same book. The promise and the catch. Ask and you'll receive. And you don't receive because you're asking with the wrong motive to spend it on yourself. Peterson, of all people, said the same thing in his own language tonight. Ask for what's highest and you'll get what's highest. Ask for what's lowest and that's what you'll get too. I asked for her. I dressed it up in worship language, us honoring God together, but underneath the language, I asked for her, and the no I got wasn't God ignoring me. The no was the answer. If this is the kind of wrestling you're into, stick around and subscribe because I'm walking this whole road out loud, not reporting back from the finish line. Now, let's get back to it. Here's where I think Peterson is dead right, and the one place he stops short. He's right that prayer is, his words, an admission of insufficiency, a reaching into the beyond. He's right that we're all wrestling with God, whether we admit it or not. He says it more beautifully than most preachers I've heard. He takes the man all the way up to the door. But then he names what's on the other side of that door, the spirit of being and becoming. The highest. He circles it. He'll talk about God all night and keep him at arm's length as an idea, a process, a direction to aim. And I watched him do it twice. And the second night, something had moved. The man who had been circling was closer to kneeling. That's why I can't be cynical about him. I saw the evolution with my own eyes across 2 stages. But here's what I can tell you that he wouldn't that night. I know what's on the other side of that door because the voice in that truck wasn't the spirit of being and becoming. It was the Holy Spirit. It had a name. And the no in that shower wasn't the universe aiming me higher in the abstract. It was a father telling a son, not her, not this, because I've got something for you you can't see yet. Now here's the part I have to be honest about, or this whole thing is a lie. I didn't find the good in that no while I was still on my knees wanting her. I found it after. The closed door is what made me available to serve, to disciple, to pour into men the way I do now, in a way I never could have if that prayer had gone my way. I'm at peace single, genuinely. But I won't stand here and tell you I'd have chosen it freely with the door still open. I found that gift after it was the only thing left to find. That's the honest version, and I think that's how it usually works. You don't get to feel the wisdom of the new until you're standing on the far side of it. So if you're the guy whose truck actually stalled, whose ding never came, whose prayer curdled, hear me. The silence is not a verdict on your faith. Sometimes you get the truck, sometimes you get the shower, and most of the time you don't get to know which one's coming until later. Faith isn't praying hard enough to force the ding. Faith is keeping your hands open through both the rescue and the wreckage, trusting that the Father who answered me in that cab is the same Father who loved me enough to say no in that shower. I still can't always tell the difference in the moment, and neither could Peterson up on that stage. But I'm not wrestling a stranger, I'm wrestling my Father. And I've got fuel in the tank to prove he's listening, even when the answer is no. It's one day better.